his Bible. Look at this. That man read his Bible. Look at that.
It's red.
We're at the Martin Luther King National Historic Center in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey, Mom, the Bible's red.
That's because he read it a lot. And we're looking at Martin Luther King's original things that he once owned. This is his Grammy Award right there. This, of course, is his robe. These are some of the suits he wore back then. His passports. His wallet. This is his cufflinks. And his cologne he liked to wear. That's the suit he wore when he, with his wife, when he got the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1968, Martin Luther King led 6,000 protesters on a march through downtown Memphis. He gave his last speech entitled, "I've Been to the Mountaintop," on April 3rd. He was assassinated by a sniper on April 4th. These are pictures from that time period. And of course the infamous picture from the Lorraine Motel. And of course this is in 1967. We're actually working backward here. In 1967, he wrote a book called "Where Do We Go From Here?" And this is also where he attacked the government Vietnam policy in a speech at the Chicago Coliseum. Then, of course, there were riots during this time period. And he announces the formation of the SCLC of a Poor People's Campaign that year, representing poor blacks and whites. In 1966, here he is, leading a march there in Mississippi. And of course, folks registering to vote. And there at this time was a black sheriff by the name of Lucius Emerson in Alabama. 1965, Malcolm X was the leader of the Organization of Afro-American Unity, and he was a former black Muslim leader at that time. August 11th through the 16th, during that year, you heard of the Black Ghetto of Los Angeles, where there were riots. Meanwhile, prior to, Martin Luther King was marching in Selma to Montgomery, and President Johnson presents his voting rights to the Bill of Congress. There's marches in Selma, and there's demonstrators that were attacked in Selma, of course. And then here we are, some of the pictures from back then. And Martin Luther King. This is when he was at a planning session with James Foreman, Ralph Abernathy, and James Farmer. 1964, Martin Luther King was held in St. Johns County Jail. And this is where he watched President Johnson sign the Civil Rights Act. We're working backward. There's pictures of him there. Receives Nobel Peace Prize. 1963.
Something in my picture.
1962. This is what we just looked at. Dr. King is tried and convicted for leading the December March in Albany. He was arrested at that time at the Albany City Hall back in July of 1962. 1961, third child was born. Dr. King arrives in Albany, Georgia. He was also arrested on December 16th. '60. They moved to Atlanta, King and his family, and they had their first lunch counter sit-in organized back then. The King Civil Rights Movement. He was at a conference with John F. Kennedy at that time. 1958. In 1959. 1957. 1956. And then, of course, 1955 and the Rosa Parks situation then. There you have it. Then, 1951, King had graduated from Crozer, and then he enrolled in Boston University. In 1953, he married Coretta Scott in Marion, Alabama. 1954, Supreme Court of the United States rules unanimously in the Brown versus Board of Education, and King is installed by the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. as the 20th pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery. 1947, King has his license to preach, becomes He's an assistant to his father's pastor of Ebenezer. 1948, he's ordained into the Baptist ministry. June of that year, King graduates from Morehouse College. In September, he enters the Crozer Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania. And then, of course, 1929 is when Martin Luther King was born to Reverend and Mrs. Martin Luther King Sr. And there it is. 1935 to 1944, King attended David T. Howard Elementary School. There's pictures of his family back then. There he is.